Today, we're doing a deep dive into an absolutely chilling narrative. It's drawn from the razor's edge of daily life.
It really is. We're analyzing a raw firsthand account of near-fatal road encounters. And the really shocking part is that they all took place in a single afternoon.
Yeah. On December 12th, 2025, along the NH-66 corridor in India, the source is called Indian Road Choices, The Peril of Inches.
And that title says it all, really. It's not just a list of bad driving moments. It's more like a field study in human psychology on the road.
Right. And what really struck me about this piece, and near misses are unfortunately common for a lot of us,
Mhm.
but it was the narrator's core argument, the idea
Yeah.
that these aren't really accidents at all.
Exactly. That's the thesis. They're the predictable, almost inevitable results of conscious and very reckless choices.
So that's our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah. We want to pull out 4 key moments from that afternoon and really analyze the psychology behind them. The impatience, the arrogance, what the source calls performance.
All the things that shrink that safety margin down to literal inches.
We want you to see just how quickly a driver's ego can completely override the laws of physics.
Okay, let's unpack this. We start at 2:42 p.m. The source calls this first part the illusion of safety.
And the location is key. It's near the VSSC area on that NH-66 artery, a big coastal road that's supposed to handle a lot of traffic.
But on this day, it's just structurally compromised.
Right. And what creates the danger here is this stacking of static obstacles. It basically turns a normal street into a really unpredictable, dangerous funnel.
So let's paint the picture. First, you have a KSRTC bus. For anyone who doesn't know, these are huge, state-run transport buses. They're like a moving wall.
A very large moving wall. And it stopped dead in the right lane, just completely swallowing it whole.
And that's not all. The source also mentions the pedestrian lane is blocked.
By 2 illegally parked autorickshaws, one on each side. So you've got this massive unmoving bus on the right, and then this other clutter squeezing in from the left.
It creates this incredibly narrow channel for all the other traffic to get through.
A tiny window.
So the narrator's car is in the left lane, going at a controlled, 35 to 40 kilometers per hour. And he believes he's safe. His lane is clear. His speed is reasonable.
Yeah, that's the illusion of safety right there. The driver is doing everything right within his little bubble. He's driving defensively.
But he's failing to anticipate the aggressive choice of someone else entirely.
It's a classic cognitive bias, the illusion of control. You feel safe because you're being responsible. But the reality is, when the road structure fails you like this, with illegal parking, a stopped bus, the risk just gets transferred to the fastest, most unpredictable elements on the road.
And that's exactly when the danger appears.
Right on cue.
The text says a motorcycle erupted from nowhere.
Erupted. What a word.
At nearly 60 kilometers per hour. He's
Yeah.
trying to overtake that massive bus, even though the space to do so is just vanishing.
It's a terrifying example of how a static problem, the stopped bus, instantly creates a kinetic, a very high-speed danger.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the rider was probably blinded by the bus's bulk until the very last second. So he makes this split-second calculation, or gamble really, that his speed will somehow make up for the lack of space.
And this is where we get to the peril of inches. The measurement is key.
It's horrifying.
The rider slices through the tiny gap between the bus's massive right rear tire and the car's right side mirror.
And the cleanse.
1 inch, 1 heartbeat. It is the closest you can get to oblivion without actually making contact.
We had to just pause on that for a second. 1 inch. That's a zero-tolerance margin for error. There's no room for a pothole, a tiny wobble from the rider, a slight drift from the car. Nothing.
No recovery time.
Zero. And this incident just perfectly shows how things like illegal parking and, poor traffic enforcement, they don't just cause traffic jams, they actually weaponize the road. They create these dynamic blind spots that force drivers to gamble with their lives on a single inch.
And the narrator captures the aftermath, that emotional fallout, so well. He talks about the calm voice that suddenly appears in your head.
Ah, yes. The steering wheel therapist.
Exactly. It's that sudden, cold clarity when you realize your survival had nothing to do with your skill or your right of way. It was completely dependent on someone else's physics.
And that flash of realization, that moment of clarity, is often the only thing that temporarily corrects dangerous behavior.
But probably not for the person who caused it.
That's the tragic irony.
Mm.
The driver who survived learns a new, painful lesson in hypervigilance. Meanwhile, the aggressor who got away with it just had his bad behavior reinforced. He'll probably do it again.
So we've seen structural failure, complacency. Now let's move on to what happens when that chaos is exploited by just outright aggression.
Okay, so we're moving forward in time to 3:09 p.m. We're now near a construction zone, still on NH-66.
And the environment here is described as actively hostile, a pressure chamber.
You can just picture it. Construction everywhere, barricades funneling traffic, and the signboards are a total mess hospital. Traffic diversion, chevrons, all screaming different things at you.
It's confusing.
It's maximum environmental stress. And that kind of stress is known to push impatience right to its breaking point.
And right into this chaotic merge where traffic is basically crawling. Here comes our next character.
The distinctive vehicle. An orange and white KTM Duke 390.
Yep. Black helmet, gray shirt with orange and green accents. The source is very specific. This is a driver who clearly believes his time is more valuable than anyone else's safety.
This is where we see a concept called short-term time discounting in action.
Break that down for us.
It means the psychological reward of saving, say, 90 seconds in a traffic jam suddenly feels incredibly high. So high that the perceived risk of, dying, which our brains always discount in a moment of entitlement, is just totally ignored.
So the action itself was just stunning aggression. The rider forces his bike into a space that objectively did not exist.
Did not exist. There's a divider on one side, cars boxed in on the other, and he's going well above 45 kilometers per hour in what's supposed to be a slow, careful merge.
And the source makes this really crucial distinction here. This wasn't overtaking.
No, this was intrusion.
What's the difference?
Well, overtaking implies finding and then using a safe existing gap. Intrusion is about manufacturing a gap where there isn't one. It's about forcing other drivers, in this case the narrator, to instinctively slam on their brakes to avoid hitting you.
So it's weaponizing their survival instinct.
Precisely. That instinctual braking is the key. The KTM rider is using the stress of the construction zone to his advantage. He is counting on the predictable human survival instinct of the other drivers.
He knew the narrator would brake to save his life.
Yes, that behavior is rooted in a really deep sense of entitlement, and the narrator describes it so powerfully. The rider needed only a wheel in his hand and 4 lives on the road.
Wow.
And the helmet, the speed, they often provide this psychological cloak of anonymity. It can lead to something called de-individuation.
Where you feel disconnected from the rules.
Exactly. The driver feels separated from the social contract of the road. They start to believe they're only accountable to their own performance, their own goals.
It's not just impatience. It's a hostile takeover, a declaration that their journey is the only one that matters.
It is. And in a chaotic environment where lanes are confusing and signs are a mess, that kind of aggressive risk-taking, sadly, starts to look almost normal. And if it works, the cycle of aggression just continues.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're at 3:35 p.m. near the St. Thomas Institute for Science and Technology Road. This next incident is quieter, it's subtler.
And, you could argue, deadlier for that reason. Because it's about the compounding of 2 separate, small, bad choices.
So we're moving away from the single aggressive actor.
Right, now we're looking at systemic, low-level selfishness that just happens to intersect at the exact same moment in space and time.
So tell us about these 2 separate decisions that are happening at the same time.
Okay, so you have 2 seemingly minor infractions. First, a dark gray Toyota Nova, which is a slightly bigger, more imposing vehicle. It's drifting into a very shallow 10-degree turn, just cutting across the lane.
To do what? Shave maybe 2 seconds off his trip.
Maybe. A tiny marginal gain. And at the exact same time,
Erroring that move.
a black scooter on the right tries to cross the white line as well. So you have 2 different drivers, probably not even aware of each other, making independent decisions born from the same minor impatience.
And the result, as the source says, was one shared catastrophe waiting to happen.
Yes.
And, this feels incredibly relatable. I think this kind of thing happens dozens of times on any commute. But we just don't think about the math, the probability of 2 of those bad choices lining up perfectly.
It's the butterfly effect of bad driving. The bigger vehicle, the Innova, it sets a kind of visible precedent. The scooter driver sees what they think is an opportunity to gain some ground based on the Innova's move.
And neither of them is being actively malicious.
Not like the KTM rider. But their cumulative lack of awareness of each other and of the traffic laws, it creates an instant vacuum of safety.
The narrator says he survived untouched not by right-of-way, but by sheer anticipation. I have to ask, is that just being dramatic? Or does the data really show that when the rules of the road break down, Hypervigilance is the only thing that works.
Oh, the data absolutely supports it. Traffic systems are built on the assumption that people will obey the rules.
That there's a predictable order.
Exactly. But when drivers start operating outside those rules-cutting corners, ignoring lines, that predictability just drops to zero. Which means anticipatory driving, where you basically assume the worst possible move from every single vehicle around you, becomes your only real survival strategy.
So you're not just driving your own car anymore.
No, you're constantly managing the potential fallout from 20 other people's tiny, selfish failures.
It really reinforces that idea that you just cannot trust the space or the predictability of anyone around you. If one driver cuts a corner, someone else is going to see that and try to mirror it to keep their own perceived spot in the line.
The system starts to cannibalize itself. And that's why, so often, luck is what dictates the outcome. The narrator's skill, his anticipation, it basically acted as a substitute for luck for both the Innova driver and the scooter driver. They probably have no idea they were seconds away from a crash they both created.
Which brings us to the final and I think most psychologically telling incident. It's nearing the town marketplace at 4:13 p.m.
Right. And here, the motivation just shifts completely. It's not about impatience anymore or even chaos. This is about pure performance.
The apex of arrogance, as the source describes it, risk-taking as a kind of theatrical identity statement.
All for show.
The encounter was with a black Bajaj Pulsar NS, and the narrator gives us all these details. The rider's leaning forward, he has a tinted visor, long hair trailing out from under the helmet.
All of it builds a picture.
Yeah, this wasn't just a commute. It was a demonstration of a confidence bordering on contempt.
And this is where we can really contrast the motivations. The KTM rider from earlier, his main goal was probably saving time. But this Pulsar rider, his goal is internal. It's about status, visibility, control. It's an assertion of power over everyone else on the road.
So how close was this final theatrical pass?
It was 1 inch. 1 inch of clearance from the car's bumper. Not inches, plural. 1 inch. This was not an accident, not a drift. It was a conscious, calculated decision to violate the absolute minimum safety margin possible.
And the narrator's analysis here is so sharp because he just debunks the whole myth of skill that people associate with moves like this.
Right. It wasn't skill. It wasn't bravery.
It was performance, defined as a calculated flirtation with death, dressed up as style.
And that's the crucial psychological takeaway. This behavior is driven by a desperate need to be seen, to be feared, to feel powerful. And that need completely overrides any sense of self-preservation.
Because, as the source says, physics doesn't admire confidence.
And roads do not forgive theatrics. It's the difference between trying to get somewhere faster and trying to look cool while doing it. The ego forces the space requirement down to nothing, treating that 1 inch not as a terrifying risk, but as a badge of honor.
If you pass someone with 3 feet of clearance, you're just a competent driver.
Exactly. If you pass them with 1 inch of clearance, you're asserting superiority.
Right.
You're showing contempt for them, for yourself, for the consequences. That ego is paid for with that sacred space of clearance. You're gambling with physics just to win a fleeting moment of feeling important.
That entire afternoon, it was. It was a confrontation with a brutal truth, as the narrator calls it. The margin between getting home safely and never arriving at all is just alarmingly thin.
Thinner than we dare to think. And it's managed, minute by minute, by the choices of total strangers around you.
So when we put these 4 moments together,
The complacency that leads to the blind spot, the aggression in the construction zone, the intersecting selfishness of those 2 mirrored moves, and then finally, the theatrical contempt of the performer.
they all point to the same conclusion, don't they?
They do. Ultimately, road safety comes down to respecting space and assuming the worst of human behavior.
Drive defensively, respect that space, and really think about it. Every time you feel that urge to shave off a few seconds with a risky move, you are actively destroying the safety margin for everyone.
The source makes it so clear. These aren't just polite suggestions. In an environment where impatience and ego are in charge, they are absolute mandates for survival.
And that leaves us, and you, with the final really chilling thought from the source material, something to mull over on your next commute.
If most road accidents are, in fact, choices, and death does not negotiate inches, what percentage of our daily drive is left entirely to fate?